started and welcome everyone to this conversation, which I'm really excited to just kind of learn and grow myself. I did get a sneak peek at the report. I think that there are parts of it that really bum me out, and there are parts of it where I find opportunities for hope. But I just want to start with gratitude. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Tiffany Dufu. My life's work is advancing women and girls. That's pretty much why I'm on the planet. And while I am currently president of the Tory Burch Foundation, which is really focused on increasing women's economic power through entrepreneurship, I am also a founder of a company. And I also have to start by expressing gratitude because I don't believe that I would have been as successful growing and building my company before this role if it weren't for Leslie and if it weren't for the team at Female Founders Alliance and Graham and Walker. I applied to the Female Founders Alliance, I believe, in the summer of 2019. And you all have just believed in me from day one. The first event I participated in was an Access New York event that you invited me to speak at. And then in 2020, in the height of the pandemic, when all of us were trying to figure out what is happening in the world, you recognized me with the Founder Award as part of your Champion Awards. And so it is my honor, it is my pleasure to just have this conversation with you, Leslie, and to ask you if you could, before we talk about the report, to go back in time to when this all began. And if you could just walk us through Female Founders Alliance's journey. I know it started in 2017 to where you are now with 5,000 members. I didn't realize that, my one little application was going to eventually turn into 5,000 members. But if you could walk us through the journey, that would be fantastic.
Um, so first of all, gratitude all around. Um, Tiffany, there's a reason we asked you to, and I was just commenting on it before folks came online. There's a reason we asked you to come and have this conversation with me. I don't usually put myself in the kind of the being interviewed seat in front of my own community. That's like a weird thing for me to do, but I figured you have been almost like in every part of this journey and what the report speaks to. And I just want to say that you are someone that is easy to believe in. So you're welcome, but also not hard. And I don't usually get nervous speaking to my own people, but there's something about this report in the context of where we are in 2025 that
Mhm.
feels like a bigger risk than other things that I've done in the past. And so please bear with me if I'm not as eloquent as I normally am. I'm like, I can feel myself actually shaking, which is really weird. I'm not someone who is nervous about like being, certainly not in a Zoom room. I mean, right? Um, so I guess I'll start by taking us back. I like to say, in 2016, I left my job and decided that, instead of like working for the founder, I wanted to be the founder. And I did that and I launched a company and I did all the things that you do and got like all this traction with like my little startup that could. And then I went out and tried to raise capital for it. And um, something really funky happened and I didn't have words for it and I didn't have numbers for it, but it really felt like I went from being this like hot hire, really like the person that you really wanted to hire to like lead your like digital engineers. And Sarah Bird is like nodding. And like I was like a very, very hot hire for startups to all of a sudden I was like this like cute mommy that got on stage and was like really fun to like watch on stage, but not quite so investable. And it was like a very lonely and gaslit experience. And so I started with a few folks that are here in the room. Um, I started this like meetup group and activities and Facebook group to try to surround myself with people that were going through that same journey. And I like to say, that startup didn't go anywhere, but that little meetup is now the largest community of venture-backed female founders in America. And it has completely transformed my life, like completely transformed my life and how I see the world. And it's funny because like in the 8 years since like that was a Facebook group and then a community and then an accelerator and then eventually launched a venture capital fund, um, the mission has always been to help as many women as possible at no cost to them. And I feel like we have weathered absolutely like just like like literally everything short of a zombie apocalypse has like happened in like the venture landscape in the 8 years since I started that thing. And this year, as I went out and started to invest out of our second fund and just really kind of trying to step into the shoes of the venture capitalists and kind of reflecting um, on like the journey of building this community and observing how much the ecosystem has changed, like really in really fundamental ways. And then PitchBook came out with the data, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like everything changed except for that. Like, what is happening, right? Like, everything changes except for the percentage of capital that goes to female founders. And so I just thought, you know what? Let me go and ask founders what it feels like in 2025 to do what they're doing. Because back in 2017, 2018, I knew very firsthand because I was on the journey. But now I'm investing on the other side of the table. And I felt like, especially in the context of like the changing kind of political and social landscape, it was more important than ever to give people a voice and do so in a way that was like almost like air cover to say what the experience is really like and what they're really going through.
It doesn't surprise me that you wanted to ask these questions coming from a place of having done it yourself. Um, it's very difficult to raise venture capital, but I started my career in the social impact space. And for anyone who thinks it's difficult to raise venture, tries raising money for a nonprofit. You haven't raised money for a nonprofit before. And one of the reasons why I actually valued the experience of raising venture is that there are far more people who are venture investors who have also been founders, who have also built something. And those people inherently have a level of empathy and respect for you because they've been there. And I feel that now as the president of the Tory Burch Foundation, I live and breathe. I like lay my body on the table for any woman entrepreneur. And it sounds like that's part of the source and the inspiration behind this report. But can you talk about what sparked the idea? And also, I'm interested, did Forged in Fire come before or after you actually saw the data? Because that was a great name for what it feels like right now.
Oh my gosh, I like we went through like 25 different names. I mean, just the sheer number of hours that went into doing this thing. When I started doing it, the idea came from crossing the 5,000 founder mark, which happened sometime late last year. And it was like a moment of transition for me and for the fund. Um, I think that I'm going to overshare here, but like folks may not realize like what incredible imposter syndrome I had turning into a venture capitalist with like Fund One. And I have a lot of my own LPs here. But like for me, it was truly like, I'm going to learn how to do this job better than anyone. And like, I need to be believed as a venture capitalist. And it took a while to like feel like I was not just playing a part, but like being a thing. And kind of growing into that confidence into the second fund has been a moment of transition. And I really felt like, as I think about what do I want our venture capital fund to do better than absolutely anyone else. And we don't have a mandate to invest only in female founders, but I feel like I understand that experience better than almost anyone out there that is investing at the pre-seed and seed stage. I'm not alone in it, but there's very, very, very few of us. And having this community and like the ability to tap into what it is really like for you out there, I feel like um gives us this like, and also just the fact that I'm naturally just like very, very empathetic. What I really want to kind of embody in my job is someone who sees the founder. And like, I have been in your shoes. I see you. I know how hard you're working. And I can help you separate the things that are hard because they're hard for everyone and the things that are hard because there's something wrong fundamentally here. And that has become a little bit of a superpower. And so that's kind of like there was just so many things going on in like um, let's call it Q4 2024 and then Q1 2025 that it felt like a really important time to just go back and check in. And I think you know I I do really appreciate what you're saying. I think like I mean the Tory Burch Foundation is like that was such a good hire for them. Like, seriously, because you really have to understand what it is like to be a woman forging yourself in fire every day, in order to be someone that is better able to help, and better able to be there. And that those words are actually like, if there's, do we have any of my portfolio founders here, or even folks that I have not invested in, which by the way, like that is the one of the hardest things about this entire journey is going from someone who is the yes person, right? Who like is like saying yes and helping everyone to someone who is the no person and like basically saying no to like most of the founders that we meet with. But I like to tell founders, I know what it takes to build something from nothing and I know exactly how hard it is. So if nothing else, you have my respect. Because it's, you don't get into this journey because it's easy. You get into it because it's worthy of
Yeah,
your time in your life.
yeah, for sure. I have so many questions for Leslie, but we do have questions that you can ask as well at the end. So if you've got those questions now, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll pull them later on in the conversation. There's a lot going on right now in the world, Leslie. So what outside of the deep empathy, wanting to go back, feeling like I don't understand what it's like to raise right now, but I really think we need to capture these insights. What confluence of macro trends made this the right moment to gather these insights?
I don't know if it's the right moment. I don't think that there's a wrong moment. If I had the time and resources, I think that this would be a really interesting thing to do once a year.
Mm.
But it did feel like an important moment, right? Venture capital went through this huge boom in 2020, 2021. And then not a bust, but certainly a very dramatic contraction where the rules really, really changed for a lot of founders. The this theme that we've been listening to and exploring and even speaking about recently is like the dramatic bifurcation between the haves and the have-nots.
Very closely on fundraising.
Where does that where does that leave women, right? Like where does that leave like founders who are just kind of like putting their head down and building? And the other big thing that's happening is AI. And I'm like it has been talked to death, very ironically, right? Like talked to death. But I do think that one very big implication of AI as it pertains to any founder who is an outsider to the system, women certainly, but any founder that has kind of trouble breaking in and fundraising, AI is a really, really powerful democratizing force,
Mm.
because you can do so much without actually raising capital. So I'm really, really excited about it. And certainly that's one of the two big highlights of the report is use of AI is like dramatically high among female founders. It's something like 86% are already using it. They're using it across, which is by the way, much higher than the general population of women. They're using it across their work. They're using it for ideation. They're using it for product development. They're using it for like go to market, all kinds of things. And I'm very interested to see, I, for one, am really excited about the trend, the seed scaling, or the seed strapping rather trend, where you kind of raise one round, get things off the ground, and then like really kind of get your traction going in a very, very, very fundamental fashion before you have to go out and raise again, if you are even going to raise again. So that's something that like we have several companies in the portfolio that like raised one round and either because the market changed on them or because they just decided not to have bootstrapped or seed strapped their way to like very, very, very interesting high growing revenue. And we've never been diluted since our first investment. So I'm excited to kind of see that. Now, unfortunately, that does take a while to play out, right? Like as venture capitalists, like in the short term, the thing that looks good are like the buzzy hot rounds. But the way that I think about it is like quality reveals itself over time because it's, when we're really going to know how these companies perform is when they have an exit. And those kind of, it's sort of like the quieter ones that are just toiling away and like building their ARR. And, those are not the things that get reported on.
That's right. That's right. I'm keenly aware of it because when I came to the foundation, I was so taken at the percentage of the entrepreneurs that we support that are not venture backed and that are running multi-million dollar companies
Yeah.
right now, in part because the best form of capital, of course, is revenue from a customer. And that's what they had to really focus on early on in their businesses because they didn't have access to the capital. Let's get into this report. One of the things that I personally was surprised to see, speaking of raising money, is that burnout worsens with the amount of capital raised. It made sense once I dug into it, but initially I thought, no, 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 what are you talking about? Like, we always think money's the answer, especially as a founder. If I just had the money, if I could just raise this round, all of my problems would be solved. So, can you talk to us first about why that isn't the case? And then also, what surprised you?
Um, so it's so funny. You're not the only one that was surprised by that founding. And I saw it, I was like, yeah, no, that makes total sense to me because once you raise capital, there is a momentary, right? Like the first 2, 3 months are like, you feel like you can breathe again, especially if the fundraise is really hard. But you very quickly realize that your burn rate is higher. Like the amount that you are investing in your company and like spending every month, the money is going to run out. And the next round is going to be harder. So I think it really ups the ante for our founders when they raise capital that like they really have to like um, demonstrate very fast, very substantial traction. And it certainly doesn't help that you hear how hard things are out there. So there's this like extra kind of like existential dread that if you don't like outperform, the Series A may not happen for you at all. And that results in higher burnout. And so if you haven't raised before and you think that like, oh, that's the answer to everything, it's actually, it's not going to cure your workaholism and it's not going to make it easier. It's actually going to increase the odds. Now, even as I say this, I want to make something really clear. I spent a lot of time talking about how hard it is to raise venture and how like, all of this stuff is so hard and like something like 70% thought that this was harder than they expected. And like about half of founders, it took like 6 months to a year to raise a round. And like somebody even in the comments was like, Leslie, you should have added, or not Leslie, but like you guys should have added a category for like more than 12 months for how long it took to raise my round. Because like it didn't even capture how hard it was for me. Like some of the comments were like, um, it is hell out there was like one founder literally said it is hell out there. So I talk a lot about, and I'm going to keep talking a lot about how hard all of this stuff is and like the burnout and all of it. Um, but I don't think that that should dissuade founders. Um, I think it's just not right for everyone, but it is very, very, very worth trying. And the funniest part about the whole report, I think the other thing that like that people are like, what? Is you read like 20 pages of like ugh, like the tough mutter, right? Like if you're really reading the report, you're like, oh my God, these people are like blood in their face and like mud, it's just like your hair is all matted. And in the end, it's like 72% to feel really optimistic about achieving their next miles. They're like, what is happening here? And that is why I love working with founders because like there's this incredible optimism and like this like quiet belief in themselves and their team and the thing that they're building. Like even despite all of the negative self-talk, even despite the like complete irrationality of believing that you can do something greater than yourself, right? Like they still have it. I love that kind of quiet confidence. Or like, everything sucks. The world is so hard. I really wish that it was easier, but also I'm going to achieve my go-to-market, like come hell or high water. I'm going to do this thing. I just find so much inspiration in that. Like, I was like joking, like if you're looking for American heroes, look at my survey. Like,
Yeah.
that's what they are.
For sure. What Leslie's referring to, for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to read it, I mean, it just came out, is something that, I kind of honed in on as well, which is that there's a lot, there's the reality, of what it means to raise. So 71% of the founders that were surveyed said that their last round was harder than expected. 75% say that they have experienced burnout, and yet 72% of them say that they're optimistic about reaching their next milestone. So I'm burned out and raising money was hella hard, but I have a level of optimism about getting to the goal. And I do think that that is, yes, partly just the faith of a founder, and we talk a lot about that. I also think that there is something about leading from the foot of the table, meaning that when you already have been through a lot or you've already had to manage another kind of adversity, this is a different kind. It's a grueling kind. I think being a founder is the hardest identity that I've ever had, and I've been through a lot of tough things. And I think it's because the rate at which your company needs to grow is directly correlated with the rate of your own personal growth, and it's faster than the rate of normal human development. So there really is a psychological and an emotional um, pull and tie and evolution that needs to happen that is unlike, really anything else, certainly professionally, that I've ever experienced. So I was actually quite delighted by that as well. Which of the results confirmed what you already knew?
I mean, the I would say all of it or most of it was unsurprising to me because I'm very, very close to the experience still, very close to our portfolio founders that are going out and just the community in general, right? Like through our founder days. So like none of this stuff is necessarily surprising to me. But I think a few things really resonated. One was just that like frustration with being dismissed. And that's something that I've carried my entire life. Like I call it my middle child syndrome. It's like, I just want to be taken seriously. Like truly, like, I mean, I know very few people who work as hard as I do. Like, I mean, maybe you being one of, like, seriously, just take me seriously because I'm going to make this thing work one way or another. And I think a lot of people do, but I think that when I go out and pitch myself, I'm still seen as this like, shiny thing that is, cute and good for press, but not necessarily someone that like should be taken seriously. And I think that extends to our founders. Some of the technical founders that answered the survey had the most comments about this stuff that like, hey, just leave your biases out, right? Like ask me what could go right, not what could go wrong. I feel like I'm pitching two objections. So that really like that idea that like I feel like I'm pitching two objections, I feel that to my core. Like really. Um, and then the other that like I really, really liked um to kind of put words against is something that like founders, oh my gosh, like how many times have I been in the audience at a like panel or one of these things where the advice to female founders is to pitch bigger, right? Because like we know that female founders do tend to pitch more measured visions. They tend to pitch like, this is what I can achieve, um, and I'm confident that I can achieve this, versus like the sort of prototypical Silicon Valley. And it's not 100% a gender thing, but it is a big gender thing. Is like, I am going to change the world and then I'm going to do it in Mars, right? Like really kind of like preposterous. And so a VC is like listening to that all day and they're going to discount, like they're going to place like a discount on all of them equally. And so the female founders um, pitch ends up looking like very paltry and like not ambitious enough. And so the kind of prevailing wisdom is to go out and tell female founders like pitch big, right? Like boast, like kind of beat your chest. And then in the report, there are actually a lot of founders who are like, hey, listen, like beating your chest and like making up big numbers is not actually a requirement for like building an outstanding business. I was like, I'm paraphrasing that comment, but it was so true, right? Like, it's like, yeah, so they were very unapologetic about it. Like, we had a question in there, like, what do you want investors to know about what it's like to be a female founder? And a lot of them were like, just because I don't pitch big doesn't mean that I prefer to be honest and upfront about what we're going to achieve in the next 12 months. Like, that is a feature, not a bug. And it really changed how I thought about giving founders advice to maybe we don't need to be pushing them to like be someone other than who they are, but maybe just to like give a disclaimer that like, hey, what I'm telling you here is what I'm actually going to achieve, and I'm not bullshitting you.
Yeah.
I really like that finding. I'm trying to like, as I'm speaking, I'm trying to find the right quote, but you guys can all download the report. I think it's in the comments.
I'm having my own Tiffany's epiphany because I'm the oldest of four girls and I expect for people to take me seriously. And I'm always a
I
little
swear, like
baffled. I was a little baffled when they don't, because I'm Tiffany Dufu. What do you?
last year when I was doing the political stuff, a bunch of the quotes that ended up in the press that I said were things like, they don't speak for me. And like my siblings were like, oh my God, that is so you. Like they like I mean, I have middle child syndrome.
I want to talk
Be well.
about I want to talk about this burnout because a significant percentage, 75% of the female founders that were surveyed said that they experienced burnout.
Yeah.
Nearly one third of them reported health issues. Another third stated strained personal relationships as a result of what they were going through. And we feel that here at the Tory Burch Foundation. In fact, we've partnered with BetterHelp to get health care, to get mental health care to the entrepreneurs that we support, because so often when you're just getting started, you don't have access to the kind of mental health care that you might need. And one of the things that I noticed, and of course it was not a shock to me, was a part of the report that because so many of them are also caregivers, whether they're caring for individuals at the lower end of the spectrum because they're children and you're responsible for them, or whether they're caring for people at the other end of the spectrum because they're your parents and they need the support. I would be remiss, though I don't have any pets, if I didn't include furry family members in the caregiving category. But I'm just interested, especially because, Leslie, I know that you're saying that you're not on that side anymore, but you're still an entrepreneur.
And there
You're still hustling, and you still have caregiving responsibilities, as a mother yourself and as a woman. How are you managing and what are you saying to your community about how to ensure that your own sustainability is prioritized?
Oh man, I'm a little bit. There's a saying in Spanish, I can't remember what it's in English, but like casa de herrero cuchillo de palo. Like if sometimes you are your own. Like you might be preaching something, but in your own house, you might not be as good at it. And so I am not great at like avoiding my own burnout. I think because I really care about what I do and like um, I for some people when they don't have like when you're working for yourself, for some folks it's hard to sort of figure out what to do. For me, it's the opposite. For me, it's hard to figure out when to stop. And I think that that is like a very entrepreneurial mindset. And if you don't put boundaries on yourself, then it can like really, really, really hurt, especially for those of us, and it turns out to be a lot of folks who are caretakers. That like, the work literally never ends, right? Like you're doing your startup work and then you're doing your like housework and your caregiving work and then you're doing your second shift of like startup work, right? Like, and then you're doing some dishes to like round out the day. And you never take care of yourself. And I try to remind myself that it's a marathon, right? Like I mean, it is bonkers to me, but I've been doing this for 8 years. This is the longest job that I have ever had in my entire career. And I think you get really good at, you know, it's sort of like what I read from the report is like when you are a caregiver, you are almost like forged, if you will, right? Like you are forced to decide what matters.
Mhm.
And that is both like how you spend your time and what you spend your time on. And that kind of came out in some of the comments in the report that like, I just have to be more strategic. But by and large, these founders are feeling the pain. I would also be remiss if I didn't say that this is not something that is unique to female founders, right? Like this is like an America problem, right? Like we are just putting so much pressure on parents and not giving them a break and not giving them the support. And now we have like kind of caregiving for the seniors, right? That is like about to become a very massive like problem that I think a lot of folks our age are starting to or have started to experience. So something has to give, right? Like something has to give. Um, and again, like I really go back to, for these caregiver founders, in addition to experiencing more burnout, they were also more likely to say that they have considered quitting and stepping down. And so I think that it's just sort of a reflection that there's a higher bar to how you spend your time. Right? There's just like a higher bar, and you're not going to do things thoughtlessly because there's just like no time to waste. I tend to think, going back to AI, I'm just going to share this here, but one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot with AI is that the new, I think like the new human superpower becomes not creation, but prioritization. Because now that you can just like create endlessly, what really matters is like picking the exact right thing and knowing when to stop. And I actually think that that is a skill that you are forced to pick up as someone who is very, very time starved. That the skill of editing, of dropping the ball, if you will. Um, so I tend to think there's something interesting that will come out of like just like knowing when to stop, knowing kind of what matters and what doesn't matter, and being able to kind of let the rest go.
Yeah. You said that you've been doing this for 8 years, which is, let's just round it up to a decade, because that's what the guys would do, you know? They would round up.
Yeah, I'm tired.
Um, so has anything changed, in
Yeah.
almost a decade since you started working on this?
Yeah, I do think that some things have. I mean, certainly the like technology has changed a lot, right? So we talked about the advent of AI and what that means for the ability to test concepts very, very quickly and get traction with very little money up front. So that I think can make a very, very big difference. And it's a trend that I'm paying a lot of attention to now. And I really encourage founders to tinker and like try. So that is one big fundamental change. I would say another is community.
Mhm.
If you think back to like certainly 10 years ago, I think that it was a much lonelier journey for a woman going through this stuff. Um, Fast forward a decade, we have Female Founders Alliance, but we also have Tory Burch Foundation and the Female Founder Collective and All Raise and How Women Invest and like all of these different communities. And also a lot of the knowledge has been published, right? Like there is so much more kind of like know-how in building in public that demystifies the experience of building a company. And those can all be really, really, really powerful. It's almost like the kind of the Girl Scout effect, right? Like we have built pretty powerful community-based organizations, many of which are highly collaborative with each other, um, that we're kind of there for each other. And that is like balm, right? Like that is a beautiful thing to behold.
I'm a lifetime
Be a
Girl
part
Scout.
of. It's really like just an honor
Yeah.
to like still be here, still be doing the work.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm a lifetime Girl Scout, so
Me
I'm,
too.
I'm into your
Well,
into
I'm
your
not. I mean, I was like a 6-year-old Girl Scout, but I was on.
once a Girl Scout, always a Girl Scout. Once a founder, always a founder. You just can't you can't shake it. On my honor, I will try. Forever, forever and a day.
Promise I
I
will.
think that what you're saying about community is so important because even before I was a founder, but certainly in building a company, the answer to pretty much all of my questions was another sister founder in some way, shape, or form. I can't really think of any question I had that she collectively, did not answer for me in some way, shape, or form. Even the investors on my cap table, I got through relationships and through introductions from sister founders. So I do think that there's something about a group of people who are going through something. I think it's human nature. It could be your parenting, and you're, collaborating with other people in the neighborhood who are going through the same thing that you are simultaneously. There's something very special and unique about it. And it's also something where because you understand the nature and the on-demand nature of it, you have automatically through community a on-demand resource. Yesterday I had a founder reach out to me to say, hey, there's another founder that I know that's exiting. Will you talk to her? Of course, I'll talk to her. What's her phone number? Like, I had a meeting. It didn't matter. I called her, to say, hey, I hear that you're going through this. Like, what can I do? How can I help? And we do that for each other in a heartbeat. It's like a code of conduct that we all know. And I think that's really the power of community. There isn't another external stakeholder that I would feel as vulnerable with, as comfortable with, and that I would show up for in the way that I would show up for another woman founder. And I think that is really the power of community. And it's why it's so incredible that you've built one that's 5,000 strong.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, I still remember the days when I knew every single person. I knew all their names, their companies, what they did. I could probably still spew them out. Some of them are still around, some of them have exited. Um, I like that is not only because I cannot memorize, 5,300 names, because I'm older and tired and have not slept in a long time in those 8 years. Um, it just got a lot bigger. And so these days I'm kind of trying to reconnect in person and do fewer things, but deeper.
Yeah.
Which I think is just speaks to my own burnout challenge, right? Like how much can you, um, like how long can you go? And how much can you do? And how do I make sure that I can do this for another 8 years or another 10 or another 20 or what I would like to do is to do this for the rest of my life. I think
Mhm.
pursuit for
That's commitment. That's commitment. Okay, so I have one more question for you before we open it up. So, those of you who have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. What do you most hope people will take away from this report?
yeah. I actually did not put my team through this to put a mirror in anyone's face. That was not like this was not like I actually don't think that we're going to like change venture capital through reports. Like that's just not how that is going to work. We're going to change venture capital through making a lot of money because that is what moves venture. And so that is how we're going to do it. But what I did want to do is just give you all a voice. And I know how lonely it is, um, and how just the highs and lows, even in a single day, are I just unimaginable. Let alone a year, let alone a lifetime of your company. I guess I just wanted to say like, hey, I see you, and like you're not alone. There's a lot of you. And I I know how hard this thing is. I hope you're doing it for the right reasons. And if you are, I hope you keep going. And I truly believe that um, the world would be a better place if more of you get your companies listed on the NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. I really, really do. Like that's the world that I want to live in. And so um, you're not crazy. It's not in your head. Also, at the same time, I do think it's important for this report to show female founders the parts of the journey that have nothing to do with the fact that you're a woman, right? Like that there's a lot of it that is just plain hard for everyone, and it should be. And it's important to be able to differentiate, A from B. Um, but outside of that, I like to tell founders that like success is not the round, like success is not the valuation, success is not the TechCrunch article. Success is what you do with your company. And actually, if you like really want to get big picture about it, success is how you spend your time. Like success is deathbed moment. Like, did you did you lead an extraordinary life? Did you like live it with intention? Because you only really get one of it. And you know, in that like really high level way, I hope that this report encourages you to keep going. So that maybe when we do it again in a decade, there's just like no difference, right? Like then we can stop being female founders and we can just be founders.
I love it.
Maybe one day.
We've got a question from Bridget in the chat. She's curious where you see the landscape changing, evolving, staying the same in the next year, and where you're placing your bets beyond the power of women in community, of course.
Oh my God. There's a lot of fundamental change in the venture capital landscape. I think that the dramatic bifurcation between like the expectations of high growth AI companies versus literally everyone else is just incredible. Like it has become a game of like a single bet makes an entire career. But I think that is a lot more true for another one of the trends is this like um, concentration of capital in the hands of a few very, very, very large venture capital funds, and all of them are betting on like scale AI sized exits or bigger, or right, but or even like open AI sized exits, or sized companies. And they're like a lot of that piece of venture capital is like exclusively looking for that size of outcome and literally doesn't care about any of the rest. And then on the other side of the equation, there's kind of the smaller kind of, seed, pre-seed funds that can still like look at like the rest of the ecosystem. And I think that a lot more of those companies are going um, to like build very substantively before they raise any additional capital. So for women, I'm getting a little nerdy and like kind of putting on my economist hat. Like for women, I think that like it is more important than ever to focus on your attraction and velocity. And if you're going to get on the venture capital train, that is kind of the cost of the ticket, right? Like that is what it's going to take. Um, Having said that, there's also a bigger opportunity to bootstrap companies now because we have a lot more tools at our disposal to do that. So kind of having that really honest discussion with yourself about what direction you want to go in, I think is really important and healthy right now.
Yeah. There's a question here about women VCs that I think it would be great for you to address because there were some disheartening comments about women investors. I will say that there were more disheartening comments about some of the male investors, but either way, you want to talk about women, and Leslie's a good
Compensation.
person. Leslie's a good person to ask. It was tough to read. I do agree as someone who is a champion for women. What do you think about the dynamic
Yeah,
that came
and
out?
actually there's a few kind of like there's a few things in the report that are a good mirror for investors. That being one of them. The other is the a lot this is actually new from 8 years ago, which is a lot of the sort of founders very obviously feeling that investors are wasting their time, because there's a lot of VC firms out there that don't actually have capital to invest. And that is kind of affecting founders. And I really, that's bad behavior, and I hope that we call out more of it. When it comes to female VCs, I think that there's a few things happening here. One is I think founders have an expectation, fair or unfair, they have an expectation that they're going to have an easier time with a female VC. And when that doesn't happen, are going to like be more upset, right? Like I like to say that like happiness equals expectations minus reality. So if you had high expectations and the reality doesn't match, you're going to be more unhappy with that VC. The second thing is that like for female partners of bigger VC firms, yeah, like it is harder for them to get deals across. Not all of them, but for a lot of them, those there is like there are internal politics that they have to deal with too. And then the third thing is, um, you have to remember that like the bar for the female VC is much higher too. Much, 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 much higher. And they're going to be looking for like there's just like less leeway to make fun bets that don't have like perfect conviction. So if you are anything short of like perfect conviction, you know, doubling month over month, you're going to get more scrutiny. Like it is going to be harder for that, for that VC to get you across. I don't think that there's any ill intent. And I sometimes think that like the answer is not for it to be easier among the female VCs. The answer is for it to be equally hard for everyone, right? Like it should not be easy. You're taking other people's money. It's like hard-earned money from other people. But I think that is one of the things. So not to not to excuse it, but I think it has like there's like basis in reality, that has nothing to do with you guys. It has everything to do with like what the experience of the VC is on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. I also
Great
do.
question. I'm
Oh,
glad you
it's a
asked.
great question. I also always want us to just stop and pause and think about sometimes our expectation that women should be more supportive, that women should be more nurturing, that women should be more collaborative, and just to think about the socialization of it. For those of us whose lives work are advancing women, we should be all those things. That's part of my job. But I'm sure there's, a woman on Wall Street for whom that's not part of the job description. So to expect her to be that just because she's a woman, I think is a question too, worth noting. I
I
hope that
think
we'll
that there's
change
like
all this.
if I can throw, we put unfair expectations on each other. And I
Mhm.
think that that's an important thing to just say out loud, right? Like, I think that when we reach out to a woman, we expect that she's going to help us. Like we have like a higher expectation, like, she's caregiving too, right? Like I'm very spread, right? Like, so just kind of that is an unfair expectation. And the other thing is like, one thing that did not come out in the report, because I think we're in a very different place now, is the female founder takedowns, right? Like we went through an entire period of female founder takedowns over the past 5 years. And that kind of, when there's a woman CEO and a woman VC and like a woman in a position of leadership, we not only expect her to be outperform, right? Like to like she has to be 10 times better. Like quoting somebody from the report, you have to be 10 times better to justify being in the room. But also, she's got to do it kindly and nurturingly and like always perfectly and like never have a bad day and never be hard on her people, right? Like, and like that, like actually, all of if most of you here are CEOs of companies, that's really hard, man. Like sometimes you just have to like clear as kind, right? Like sometimes you just have to have high expectations and like drive your team. And so though, when you're a woman in a position of leadership, whatever that position looks like, there is that kind of kindness trap or likability trap that like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And that is really hard for founders And it's really hard for female CEOs of public companies and like leaders. Like it's hard. It's honestly just, that's just an across the board hard thing.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I hope someone on your team takes the chat because there's more questions that we're going to be able to get to. But I do want to get to Amanda's question because there's somebody else who commented that she's got a good question here. As both a founder and an endowment board member, I see how the popularity game shapes outcomes for both startups and venture firms. How do we break that cycle where capital flows to the already popular, even when it creates concentration risk for LPs? And stars promising but overlooked founders of the runway needed to reach power law outcomes.
That, I mean, that is a literal billion-dollar
I
question.
know. Thank you, Amanda.
Mad concentration of capital in venture capital. And because the sector is a power law sector, then it doesn't matter. Like all you need is like one big bet to pan out. And so you kind of, to understand the outcomes of the system, you just have to understand its goals, right? Like that its incentives. So the system is incentivized towards the concentration of capital. But I think that like, I mean, for me, sitting where I sit, I think that the key is to look long term, right? Like, um, even though there are stories of like quick, gigantic exits, do you remember that movie, He's Just Not That Into You? Like that's the exception. That's not the rule. Like that's not ever that is not the expectation, and that is not how most money is made. And so I think separating the like short-term optics from the long-term outcome takes care of that a little bit. And it's just sort of not reported on. Um, Outside of that, I mean, I think like on a truly kind of like macro economy wide level, when it comes to kind of women's place in all of this, I think my first sort of ask and desire, I don't even know what to call this, but like I wish that more of us were talking about money and advocate and like investing and like sitting on those endowment boards and like like actively participating in those decisions and saying something when those decisions happen. Um, and so that means that like go sit on boards, start investing, right? Like start talking to your friends about investing and like just really kind of like come in and participate in the ecosystem so that we can have a say when some of those decisions happen. Um, Other than that, I mean, I want to know the answer to that too, right? Like I have to fundraise too. Almost everybody here has to fundraise, and we're all kind of in the same ecosystem. So whoever has an answer to that, you should email me. I want to know.
Yeah, I want to know too. Listen, Leslie, there's one thing that we don't question and we don't need to know, which is your commitment to women entrepreneurs and to this work and to this ecosystem. I once had a mentor when I was commenting that she was spending time with her mentee instead of doing something that I felt was more important. She said to me, Tiffany, it's going to get very lonely at the top if you don't send the elevator back down. That's what we're all here to do. And you, Leslie, are a masterclass in sending the elevator back down. Thank you so much. On behalf of me and all of the founders who are listening, thank you so, so very much. I'm going to turn, you can have the last word. It's your
I'm
party.
just like equally full of gratitude. Thank you for doing this with me, Tiffany. I really appreciate you. Next time, just you and me over coffee or a cocktail.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
Congratulations on all of your accomplishments. You're an inspiration to me.
Thank you.
Um, and I also want to say thank you to everybody that participated in the report. Divya, Ryan, Tanya, Evan, Marissa. Oh my gosh, am I missing people? I hope I'm not missing people. Everyone who filled it out and gave us their stories. It was, oh my gosh, it was like pulling teeth getting the sample. So thank you so much to all of you. And yeah, I mean, I'm so like glad that this is out in the world, if only so that I can stop reading it obsessively. That's going to be very healthy for my life and marriage and like kids. But the yeah, like the work continues. Just like the day after SVB collapsed, just like the day after we all went home after the pandemic, just like, the day after a massive rejection, just like the day after a big win. I'm going to go and have a one-on-one with my team now because the work continues.
Mhm. Have a good one, everybody.